Well, this week, a massive show of U.S. force in Syria. 200 bombs, 48 planes, and we are still assessing the damage.
So, what's the anatomy of an airstrike, and how exactly are they carried out? Joining us right now is former Navy pilot, Fox News correspondent Lea Gabrielle. Lea, first off, as you see those strikes, Steve brought this up earlier, it looks as though we were not devastating the target. Is that how you viewed it?
Well, you know, the
we didn't blow everything up.
No, we didn't. The Pentagon made a point of letting us know that they intended not to. You know, for example, they showed before and after pictures of buildings where there was a communications array on top, and they said, look, our target was not the building, it was this communications array, and there's a reason for that. We don't know what it is. They didn't say what it is, but I think that they really made a point of letting us know that they can be surgical in the strikes to take out very specific targets.
Command and control was one of the goals.
Right.
So you have been in the cockpit on a situation like this. Tell us what it's like when you're on the aircraft carrier in the night about to take off.
Okay, well, just to back up, there's so much that goes into the planning before that ever happens. You know, first off, as you said, they come up with a goal. What are we trying to do here? They gather intelligence. We know that there have been surveillance flights flying. We saw from these pictures, these before pictures, we know that they had very good intelligence going into this. Then, you know, a set of targets would be determined, and then those targets would be handed to, you know, a strike group. For example, a group of F-18 pilots on the carrier. We would get together and we would look at the targets, and we would assess what kinds of bombs we need to use, how many different airplanes need to go and fly into the war zone in order to take out that target. So we would specifically weaponeer for a target. For example, you know, the weapon of choice on an F-18 for a GPS strike would be the JDAM.
Sure.
That's a weapon that has it's basically a dumb bomb where you've added a GPS package onto that so that it can guide itself directly to a target. Okay. Yeah, but you would even figure out, you know, what type of fuse you want to use. For example, that comms array that I mentioned that they took out, they said that they had an airburst fuse on that. But if we wanted to take out the building, we use a penetration fuse to penetrate the roof of the building. So you decide all these things, and you decide, you know, how many aircraft you need to do it, how many bombs you need to drop. And you don't just go out with a bunch of fighters that have bombs on them. You also go out with fighters that are going to have air-to-air weapons to take out any air-to-air threats, any surface-to-air threats.
How often do you go, I reviewed the targets, I saw the video, this is what I'm going to do, and then you get over the target and you go, I got to change what I drop. What I see now is what they told me I would see.
It really depends on the type of strike that you're doing. You know, when we're doing close air support, that's when there are troops on the ground who are calling us in to take out targets. Then we're really going to be guided by them and what their needs are. They might say, we need you to take out this specific thing, or they might say, take out a target of opportunity. You know, help us, you know, just downsize, decrease the enemy's ability here. But in this type of strike where you had very, very good intelligence, they had specific things that they wanted to take out on buildings, specific compounds they wanted to take out. In this case, you know, you would actually be plugging those GPS waypoints into your bomb, essentially into its brain, before you took off.
Before you took off.
Yeah.
Can you go into risk and the factors that are included in that? I mean, at night, airstrikes at night versus day, what someone actually faces when they're in there about to perform airstrikes through?
Well, that's a good question. You know, going in at night, actually, it provides you the cover of darkness, the element of surprise. You know, a lot of people are sleeping in the middle of the night. This type of strike is one where we'd go in pretty much high and fast. Now, you know, one of the big risks, I think, going into a country like Syria, of course, and we all talked about it, was what types of air defense do they have, and are they going to be active? And so that's, you know, regardless of any communications that we've had with the Syrians, you're still going to want to make sure before you go in that you're not taking the risk of getting your aircraft shot down. That's part of the reason you typically would use things like Tomahawk land attack missiles from the ships first, but also sending in a stealth fighter. That makes sense before you send in the rest of the aircraft.
Is it like in the movies where you're flying and you know when, for instance, the Syrian air defense has locked onto you with the radar?
Yes.
You do know?
Yes, you do. And, you know, as I was explaining the strike package that you would send out, the group of F-18s, for example, from the ship, it wouldn't just be the guys dropping bombs. There would also probably be a couple of F-18s that are carrying high-speed anti-radiation missiles that would essentially be looking for any sort of a surface-to-air threat like you're talking about, and then would drop that weapon on.
So that it goes over there.
That's what the high-speed anti-radiation missile does, is attacks that. But you also have, you know, indications in your cockpit that would let you know if you're being targeted by
something that would divert any sort of attack on an aircraft. It could pull their their torpedo,
If you have
their
that defense
their bomb,
technology.
pull it away.
Well, we have ways of trying to defeat a missile that's been fired at us. We have ways of trying to defeat that missile's radar. We have different tactics that we can use that I won't go into details about, but we also have that weapon that I talked about that can take out the radar of a surface air missile.
Well, it's great that you are part of our team trying to explain it very effectively. Former Navy aviator. Lea, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yesterday. Meanwhile, as we talk about all these very technical missile strikes and whatnot, who better to talk to than Lea Gabrielle, a former Navy aviator, part of the Fox News team. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to be here.
It
So
was good news
how
that everybody got back
explain
safe.
how some of these things work. Like we've been hearing a lot about tomahawks, and then yesterday you were here talking about JDAMs, which were, I think you called them dumb bombs with brains on them.
That's actually a very good way of putting it. What we're seeing in these strikes is a lot of the technology that we have and a lot of the capabilities that we have, in our military, things like the Tomahawk land attack missile. This is an amazing weapon, and I think our country really demonstrated how good it was, or how good it is with those initial strikes. This is a weapon that can be launched from 1,500 miles away from target and then hit something very, very precise. It actually essentially has a picture in its brain of what the terrain it's flying over should look like, and it can compare what it's actually flying over to that for accuracy. And a lot of this is because we want to prevent collateral damage as we're doing this, and I think these strikes are kind of demonstrating our ability to do that. You also mentioned the GPS guided bombs that are being used. They haven't really named them yet, but just from my experience, I would guess that the JDAM, the Joint Direct Attack Munition, is probably what they're using as a GPS guided bomb. And a lot of when they're dropping them from airplanes, that would be the F-18's weapon of choice.
The Tomahawk takes off on its own, and the JDAM gets dropped.
Now, yes, the Tomahawk is actually a missile. It's a land attack missile, and it's launched from a ship.
Okay.
Whereas the JDAM is actually dropped from an airplane. And the JDAM, the way it works, it's like we said, a dumb bomb where we've attached a GPS guidance kit and fins, and basically we can fly high and fast over a target, somewhere maybe 30,000 feet, going maybe 450 miles per hour. We're putting a lot of smack on it, giving it some gravity to work with, and then it will basically fly its way to the target. We don't even have to fly right over it. Now we can weaponeer these weapons. We can pick the types of fuses we want. Now there's a picture that we've seen from some of the strikes, a picture of the ISIS finance building. We may have it that we can pull up here, but it shows how they took out just a comms array on part of the rooftop, and they said that they used an airburst fuse. But if they wanted to actually penetrate that building, if they wanted to take out the building, they could have done that. They would have used a penetration fuse, and intelligence analysts would probably have looked at the building, tried to figure out how thick the walls were, how thick the ceiling was, and you would actually weaponeer for that particular building itself. So we have a lot of capabilities. These strikes are really showing the capabilities we do have.
There are some critics, though, that are concerned that the pinprick strikes, as they've been nicknamed, are not going to work. Leah, listen to Dick Cheney here and what he had to say, and then I'd love your response.
Okay.
Pinprick attacks, as they were doing initially with respect to their air campaign, that's what you get. You give the enemy time to adjust, to go underground, to take care of protecting themselves from those attacks, and they're less effective when you telegraph what you're going to do. And Barack Obama has consistently demonstrated, I think, a refusal to accept good military advice in terms of how he actually uses the force.
So we're trying to attack in a way because we think one day we're going to eventually have to rebuild this stuff?
I mean, not to go too much into the strategy, Dick Cheney has a unique perspective. He's somebody who's been on the inside of things. He's had access to a lot of intelligence. As you know, I worked in the intelligence community in my last few years in the Navy, and I got a good perspective there, but can't argue what the man says. But I will say this, there are reasons that we're taking out certain specific aspects of these targets. There are reasons that we didn't hit the entire building, that we hit the comms array that I described. Right. And so, we have the ability to do that. We're showing that we have the ability to do it. I think some people, would like to just see us decimate, ISIS.
Because that might be the only thing they understand, because we're watching them chop off heads. They just chopped off a head of another French mountaineer. Right. Next up, it could be a German citizen in his 60s. Right. So we see that brutality. We're wondering what kind of messages it's sending as we take off one section of one building in one town.
And sometimes we want an eye for an eye, right? But I have to put faith in our intelligence community. I have to put faith in our military. We have the best military in the world. There's a lot of people, a lot of really smart people who are working on this problem.
But they're just taking their lead from the administration.
You know, that's true. I mean, to some degree, you know, they certainly are. But at the same time, I think that they have a lot of capabilities. I think there are a lot of smart people working on this problem, and I just have to put some faith in our intelligence community for the reasons they're doing the things that they're doing.
What was your reaction? Because I saw Jennifer Griffin's on Twitter, as so many others, when they found out that it was a woman at the helm of these airstrikes.
It's
Talk
so
about
shocking.
air power, girl power, right here.
On the UAE.
How could a woman have done this?
35-year-old.
I didn't know they let women fly airplanes.
That's amazing. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it went all over Twitter. People were proposing to her on Twitter. She's 35 years old, apparently had the dream of doing this since she was a teenager, fighting for the UAE. And to have it, though, be a female fighting ISIS here, what message will that send?
You know,
to the
Elizabeth,
enemy?
this is one I just kind of stay out of. When I was a fighter pilot, I thought of myself as a pilot. I didn't think of myself as a woman pilot or anything else. And I have to guess that a woman who's done this she probably feels the same. She probably sees herself as a combat fighter pilot, period.
How does the enemy see her, though? The enemy does not have that equal pay mantra that they're marching for when they're not chopping off heads.
If I could get if I could get into the head of a person who serves with ISIS, I would be a crazy person. So I just can't answer that question.
We've seen so many photos that have been devastating as they come across Instagram or Twitter, as ISIS has used social media in a way to recruit. When we saw this photo of the female pilot, the major here, it was really inspiring to so many, as I think that and this is what the message said. It says, hey, you were bombed by a woman. Have a nice day. We gave a lot of people a pump yesterday, for sure. Tina on Facebook wrote us this: God bless her, we need more woman power. Kim said this.
Yeah, she said because she became an overnight inspiration to young girls all around the world.
Joan on Facebook said, you just got to love this. What an accomplished woman. So proud of her. Very nicely done.
And Ambassador Bolton told us earlier today that by these governments allowing a woman to do the bombing, they are saying we're breaking with ISIS, and they know that is twice as bad, knowing that a woman is bombing, to those twisted minds that we're fighting against.
In that culture, it certainly sends a message.
Sure.
And you know what? She is an inspiration. It's wonderful to see somebody who this was her dream, to become a combat fighter pilot. She's doing it, and then she's going out and executing her mission professionally. Wonderful to see that.
Mission accomplished.
Absolutely.
All right. And there she is right there. And we're giving her a thumbs up.
We sure are.
Lea
Lea
Gabrielle,
Gabrielle.
thank you.
Thanks for having me.